Welcome to our 8-week Family Caregiver Education Series, hosted by the Central Okanagan Hospice Association in partnership with Vantage Living and Jumpstart Communications. Through challenging times, and especially during this pandemic, we know family caregivers are carrying more responsibilities in caring for their loved ones, carrying more stress with varying restrictions in place, and some having to make some life-changing decisions to be closer to their family. Through this 8-week Caregiver Education Series, we hope that family caregivers will be able to build confidence, resiliency, skills, and learn more about self-compassion and self-care. We call this filling up our toolkits. The Central Okanagan Hospice Association has been providing supportive care programs and services to individuals living with a serious illness and supporting their families along the way for 39 years. This may be through our community hospice visiting program, wellness program, vigil services, or providing grief support. Our programs complement the medical care to bring an integrated approach to palliative care by providing emotional, social, practical, and spiritual supports with trained, compassionate, and dedicated volunteers and our professional staff. All of our services are offered at no cost, so there are no barriers to access our services when and where needed, thanks to the generosity of our community. The Koha Aga Center is located on Cooper Road, and we have a lend-in library full of resources and great reading materials for family caregivers. Today's topic is providing personal care at home, presented by Tara Lee Calhoun. Tara Lee is responsible for clinical oversight and program development for all Vantage long-term care residences. Tara Lee has over 34 years of nursing experience as a registered nurse. She is unique in having worked her nursing career in acute care for 32 years, but truly found her passion in caring for seniors by leading the nursing teams for the past 24 years in long-term care. Although Tara Lee is often on site supporting the clinical teams, Tara Lee's primary work location is at the Kelowna corporate office. Her past experiences as the Director of Care in long-term care for over 20 years, she has provided strong nursing leadership and ensured best practice outcomes to enrich seniors' lives. Since 2013, Tara Lee has achieved her gerontology certification through the Canadian Nursing Association to better lead the nursing team in providing the best care for our seniors.
Welcome everyone, and thanks for that great introduction. And due to good old COVID right now, we are all working from home. So my office now is now my second bedroom. So it's quite interesting working with COVID and the changes that we've had. Knock on wood, Vantage Living has not had any outbreaks in any of our long-term care sites. We have had one in our independent living, but nothing in our long-term care sites. And we're in 4 different cities in British Columbia for long-term care. So my presentation that I'm going to do today is on providing personal care at home, and I invite lots of questions. I'm going to go over systematically how we can provide personal care, not only as a caregiver, but also as a volunteer, and how we can support our loved ones at home. Some great tips for all of us to think about when we're working with our loved ones. So we're going to cover quite a few things today, but it really is systematic for me. It's thinking about the home and making sure the environment is safe, and then basically head to toe and how we can address all the different care needs that will come up when you're caring for someone. So first off, I want to start about safety in the home. So it's really important that when we're caring for our loved ones, that we really require a lot of safety tips to really keep an eye on those safety first for you and your loved ones, so you're both safe. Number one thing, and we're Canadians and we're so opening and warm, but it's really remembering, because I'm still having to work with my mom that I can walk into her house. And I'm like, Mom, you've got to get the front door locked. And they're not used to it. So we need to teach our loved ones that it's really about safety first and to always keep the door locked, and we're able to get into their house. So not to worry about it.
Can I just call for a timeout, Terry?
Absolutely.
I'm sorry, because the slide isn't showing up.
So sorry, we're just having some technical difficulties. So do we need to share that one, or do we share that one?
This is what we want to share.
And then hit share.
Okay.
Perfect. So does that look good now?
Yep.
Yay.
What we want to
Okay.
do is go from. Can we get rid of this, right?
Mhm. There we go.
So
So we are recording it, or restarting recording now?
and you can go right.
We'll
to
just
where you
keep
were.
going?
Yeah,
Okay.
just keep going, because they'll do that in
Perfect.
the editing.
So we're talking around safety around the home. So it's really important that teaching our loved ones and even our children and everyone to keep their front doors locked all the time. The next thing that is something that we think for our children, but we don't think of our loved ones, is the monitoring that you have. And the new ones are fantastic. I'm going to talk about my family a lot. So I now have my very first grandchild. She's 8 months old now. And I love the baby monitor. You can be outside shoveling snow and be able to know that she's safe, she's happy. You can hear them, you can see them. So great technology that they have now. And when you're taking care of your loved one, you're going to be able to know that you don't have to be hovering. You can give them more privacy, especially in the bathroom. So there's lots of opportunity to use the monitors, and they're really quite inexpensive. They're not extremely expensive. And they're pretty durable because I dropped it and it still works. So great monitoring programs that they have. So don't consider that. It gives you great peace of mind. Keeping a list of the current medications on the fridge. When I went to visit our site that was independent living, I was shocked of how many seniors don't have a list of their meds on the fridge. And it's one of those basic 101 program. If you're someone that is taking quite a few medications that are prescription by your physician, you should have that list on your fridge and keep it updated. The pharmacist will gladly print that out for you. It's great to have in a true emergency. You don't want to be carrying your shopping bag of really expensive medications to the hospital. They easily get misplaced, unfortunately. So keep that list of medications. It really helps. It really helps the ambulance, the palliative care team, to know exactly what medications are being prescribed and given. So the best thing around is around trip rugs. They're nice, they're warm, they keep your feet warm, but they really become quite a trip hazard. So really watch for those rugs and always consider that path. Typical, it's the bathroom to the bedroom to the front room. And is there obstacles that have always been there for many, many years, but really they become, if they grab them, they're going to move on them and cause them to possibly fall. So really look at those things that could be in the way of trip hazards and keep them, just move them in another area. One of my little tricks in life is good old peppermint. And it is amazing that it can mask so many smells, bowel smells, wound smells, grandma's musty room that can happen. So try a little peppermint. It works really good to absorb smells. Awesome. So let's move on to personal grooming. So at times your loved one is going to need some support, and it's all around how to provide that support, providing personal hygiene, but also giving dignity and support, but not taking over for the resident and the patient, and let them do what they can do for themselves. So when you're doing any personal care, it's always important to prep the room, especially in the winter time. It's much cooler, or in the summertime, and making sure that you've got everything prepped and ready. Making sure even in the summertime that you check on them, and do they like to be extra warm? So maybe setting up that portable heater, or putting the flannel sheets or towels in the dryer just to warm them up. It can make the experience so much more comfortable if they're not cold. Sleep in the eyes. So a couple of tips that you can use is always use a warm washcloth and place it over their eyes as you're getting ready to do so many other things, and getting the water ready and getting the soap ready and all that. Start with the eyes. It takes a long time to get the crusties out of the eyes. Another good trick is using a warm tea bag. Doesn't matter what flavor, by the way, but the older ones are better than the new chamomile kind of tea bag, but they'll still do the trick. And they're amazing just to make the eye feel warm and really help break up that the buildup on the eyes, and then washing that away will help. So always let your loved one do what they can do for themselves. Dignity is so important, and they might be able to not reach their legs or their back, so you could do them while they're doing their front, and it decreases their workload. So it's not having a wash in the morning doesn't mean that they now have to take a 2-hour nap. So really reducing that overexertion on for your loved one. And as their health does decline, you're going to need to do more for them, and that's more of their private area. So when their health is declining, the key areas that we always look after is the face, the hands, and the perineum area. So don't worry about the legs, and don't worry about the arms and go, well, I didn't wash my hair, and worry about those key areas. That's all about comfort. There is a great video that you can watch here about how to do a simple bathing in the while they're in bed. And it's always about cover up everything that's not being washed. So if I'm washing the left arm, only the left arm has to be out of the blankets. Keep everything inside. Don't hesitate to use a nice fluffy warm towel underneath them just to keep them nice and warm and absorb any water that does get splashed around. So when you're talking about bathing, it's certainly easier getting in and out of a tub. When that gets harder and harder, really flip to showers. And you can, many of us now have the handheld showers that you can bring it down so it's not that cold shock to them. Start at the feet, go temp that and go, oh, that feels good. Okay. And then you can wash the rest of the body through that shower. Washing hair takes a lot of energy. You need usually both hands. You've got to move them above your head. And that takes a lot of energy out of a lot of people. So really the best thing you can do around that is offer to do that and really keep the rest of the body, as I said, covered up. When you move on to bed rest and people are no longer able to get into the shower and into the tub, know that there is no rinse caps, and they are small little packages, and they have shampoo in them. You're able to put that cap, just like a shower cap, put it on their head, scrunch it all up, take it off, put a towel behind their head, let the hair dry, and boom, you don't have to rinse it out, and it keeps their hair nice and clean. And it's a great tool. You can find it at any of the medical stores. I know that Shoppers has a medical store, just to name one, but many of them will offer them. And you just ask, do you have any shower caps that have shampoo in them? And they go, yeah, we do. And they're a great program to keep people's hairs looking good, because most women, particularly some men too, want to feel good to look good. And sometimes that means getting their hair washed. The two videos that I have here, one is how to assist someone with a shower, and then the next one, how to do that bed bath. As I said, cover up that area, do it systematically. Most important, if I can't stress anything else, is make sure everything's organized. You know what shampoo you're going to use, what lotion that they like, what's their favorite towel that they like, what clothes are they going to put on afterwards. So have that all ready. It is a lot of energy that takes to have any bathing or showering done. And you want to have everything organized to reduce the workload for you and for your loved one. So around toileting, and the most important part is to ensure safety first. So the most important part is getting on and off the toilet. Getting on, typically we're more in a rush. We got to go now. So it's getting on. But once I sit there long enough, I really lose a lot of energy to get that umph off. So again, that's where that baby monitor can come in, that you say, okay, you know what? I've got you all covered. You got a nice fluffy blanket on you. You're nice and warm. Yep. I've got the monitor. I can hear you if you need me. I can see only your top face, don't see your bottom half. And I know if you need me. So I'm going to give you some privacy. So those monitors really work great. There's lots of options out there for toileting. My brother-in-law just had his knee replaced and he's like, there's no way I'm going to be able to get up during the night to go to the bathroom. Like, well, for $1, you can get a urinal. So your urinals are great for men. They actually make them for women now. They're not perfect, but they do work somewhat. But putting a commode over the toilet really reduces that lift of trying to get down to the toilet or trying to get back up again. So they have, Red Cross has great commodes that go right over the toilet. But also, if the energy is really low, you can have the commode right at the bedside and it works just like a charm. So there's lots of options that are out there that you can rent through the Red Cross cover. One of the great things about cleaning up, if you need to, if you have a bowel movement or you have someone that's incontinent of urine, the moist wipes are really good. Some of them are flushable. Keep an eye on them. Never use them if you're on a septic tank, that's for sure. They will clog up the system quite nicely. But they're great to go right into the garbage too. And they, one thing with my granddaughter now, we for $40, we bought this cool little machine that keeps them warm. So when we use the wipes, they're not the cold, because nothing is more uncomfortable than having a cold cloth on your privates. So they have some great technology out there now to help their loved ones. Stress incontinence can easily be supported. So someone that has a little bit of dribbling or might have some dribbling when they cough or sneeze, the pull-ups are a great way to keep your loved one independent, just like underwear, and then they don't have to worry about the tabs and the stickers and everything else. So tab pull-ups are a great thing to try. There's many different sizes, varieties that you can use. Be cautious when you're purchasing them from a general large store that doesn't focus on them. You might find that the absorbency is not that great. As care becomes more supportive and incontinence of bladder and bowel is going to occur more often, it's really important that you use a good product that really wicks away the moisture. I have many years of long-term care. We can keep the skin 100% healthy and intact when someone completely incontinent of bladder and bowel. So it's all about using the right product, and they have great protective creams. A lot of them have a silicone barrier to them. They apply nice to the buttocks and the cheeks and keeping them nice and healthy. So there's lots of good products out there that don't have to be really, really expensive. And the video that is connected to this is actually showing a person how to, a person that's been on the toilet for a while, and how to get that person back off the toilet. It's a really good video to watch, and I encourage you to watch the video. So let's move on to oral hygiene. Nothing makes anyone feel more alive and feeling better if their mouth is moist and if they are having teeth cleaned, especially near as the palliative level goes. They're going to mouth breathe more. So it's really important about reducing that burden to the mouth. And there's lots of different products we'll go over to help you. So not only if you need to have good oral hygiene to be able to feel hungry in order to be able to chew better and to have less pain to the mouth. It's nothing worse than having a toothache to make you and gums being sore to not really want to eat and drink. So it's really, it is our first step of our nutritional intake is making sure our mouth is under control. For someone that doesn't like to brush their teeth a lot and that, it's really important that after food is given, that fluid is always introduced. It helps wash away some of that debris that's stuck onto the teeth. So it's great. Always use a soft brush when you're brushing someone's teeth. You'll find that many of our seniors and our loved ones have brushes that might be a little bit too old and might be the hard bristle ones. I've always used this one. Well, now their mouth can't tolerate the hard bristles. So go to the soft bristles. Still does a really good job. You just might have to brush a little bit more, but it will help reduce the buildup onto the teeth. Reminder that excessive brushing of the teeth and the tongue can actually cause more pain and can actually cause skin breakdown. So very gentle cleaning of the teeth is the best way to do it. A water pick is another great tool to use that if someone really isn't into brushing anymore, I caution, I actually got a water pick for Christmas. So don't hesitate to put a towel around you because that water just splash everywhere if you happen to be already dressed for the day. But the water pick is another great way, and it really takes replacement of flossing somewhat. So it does help. So it's another way to clean teeth. The saliva replacement, again, it comes in gel, it comes in liquid. I like the gel better because it sticks and coats the teeth and helps prevent the drying of your teeth and your mouth. So it's a great product. For someone that might be having difficulty swallowing, the liquid could choke them. So that's why I kind of like the thick gel. And you can buy that at any pharmacy has them. They're a great product to use. And lip balm. I didn't put any on right now and I can feel my lips because I'm talking so much, but the lip balm will really help prevent breaking and chapping of your skin. So the moment you're starting to see that, lip balm all the time. And that is a great way to keep your lips nice and moist and healthy. And there's a great video about how to do oral care and brushing of teeth. So don't hesitate to watch that. The final thing I wanted to talk about oral care is you can find on a stick sponges, and they're little tiny ones, sometimes blue, sometimes pink, sometimes they have toothpaste on it, so keep an eye on them. Some of them are just sponges, so watch which ones you're buying. It's a great option when actual total mouth brushing of teeth is not possible anymore, or due to medications that they're on, their mouth is so sensitive. The sponges are a great way. I have a lot of people that will sponge and will brush their teeth, and then they will suck on it and suck the water in. So it's another great way to get some water into them. So that's why sometimes you want to keep away from the ones that actually have the toothpaste on them. So let's move on to foot care. Just as important that mouth is to help you get nutrition in, your feet are so critical in order to ambulate and get moving and being able to be stable. So most important is to keep an eye on foot care. For many of us, as we get older, the sensation to our feet becomes less and less. If you have something like diabetes or neuropathy or peripheral vascular disease, all of those diseases actually cause decreased sensation. They have no idea, nor can a lot of people get down and actually look at the bottom of their foot and knows what's happening between their toes. So it really causes that they could have more sores. So it's something that we as caregivers always need to be checking their feet and how they're doing and what they look like. So when someone is uncomfortable and has pain to the feet or feeling stressful, the best way that we can make them feel better and feel loved and gives us something to do is nothing better than knees down, massaging and cleaning that foot and doing that rub. It's a great way to moisturize the skin at the same time. So use a nice lotion. I tend to stay away from the perfumey ones. They tend to sometimes dry out the skin a little bit more, but it's whatever someone loves. If someone I've always used this cream, well then use this cream and love it and use it. One good thing about it is soaking feet. So soaking feet is a really great way to reduce inflammation, ease pain, and exfoliating the skin is by putting a little bit of Epsom salts. So every time you're soaking your feet, you should always throw a little bit of Epsom salt in there. It really does soothe the sole and really helps the feet. And it's an easy product and they are really quite cheap to use. And it really is good. You can throw them in your tub if you're having a bath too. So it's a really good product. So as we talked about providing lotion, there is some key tips around it. Number one, we never want to put it on the bottom of the feet. That now becomes a slippery medium, and I could slip and fall. Number two is never applying it between the toes. No matter how healthy our feet are, is a moisture between the toes when you put your socks on or shoes on really cause a very high moisture area and easily can cause skin breakdown. So always keep the lotion out of the between the toes area. And good old nail care. So if you have nice and healthy skin, absolutely, I would trim someone's nails. I always face them the way I am facing. So I face the way I'm doing my own nails is the best way. Instead of trying to do it backwards, face the same way. That helps you as you were just doing your own nails. But the other thing is that if the nails are quite thick, or if they're brittle, or if they're a good old diabetic, I wouldn't touch them. Even as a nurse with my experience, you need a lot of skills to not cause more damage than goodness. So the foot care nurse, very nominal fee for that. It's great. In the Okanagan, there's lots of professional nurses that have the foot care, and they do a really good job. They do a lot of massaging while they're doing it. And it's a nice a beauty thing that can happen in your own home. So it's a great way to do it. My final tip around nail care, whether it's your hands or your feet, we always should do it after our bath. We should always do it after we have soaked the nails. It really prevents a lot of damage to your cuticles, but also to the nail beds themselves. So always soak your nails before you're having to trim them. So skincare options. So dry skin is the most common problem as we age. And it's even more important around the palliative care level to make sure that we are providing comfort. And nothing is more comforting than having a massage. So lotions can be a great way to relieve itchiness. And lots of people, I met someone just the other day, and we were doing a dressing. We took the dressing off her back, and she's like, oh, please scratch. And I did. And she goes, more. And I'm like, okay. And she's like, some more. And I'm like, okay. Now there's a difference between scratching and there's a point where you're like, okay, I'm really tracking red marks. So don't hesitate. As part of the scratching is to use lotion at the same time, just to keep those skins subtle and moist at the same time to relieve the itchiness. So lotions work a great way to take care of itchy areas. Essential oils, I can't stress enough. They really will help. They can be in the infuser that you use. They can be in the bath water that you're using. Lavender is the number one. It helps with breathing and making breathing easier. It can help people reduce their anxiety level, but it also helps people sleep. So don't hesitate to use it. Some people are sensitive, so watch the amount of drops that you're putting in, but it's amazing that at the time people, oh, I don't like that. And then they're like, oh, but I do feel better. So don't hesitate to try some lavender. It has a lot of good healing properties to it. So let's move on to dressing and clothing options. So getting dressed in the morning can take a lot of energy. So this is one thing that we can really help our loved ones with. It's picking out the night before and going, hey, what do you want to wear tomorrow? Especially in the early evening, and you're like, I don't know what else to do. What else can I do? Well, let's plan for tomorrow and pick out what we're going to do when that loved one's still bright and able to do that. And that's one less thing you have to figure out in the morning, especially if you have to get out of the house and get to an appointment. You got to get going. You want to have all those things done as early as possible for yourself. It's really important to keep the clothes as easy to wear as possible. So I just literally cleaned it's January, we all clean our closets out. So I took clothes that I went, you know what, I like it, but it's too tight, it's not comfortable. Move them to the back and move the clothes that are comfortable. Don't hesitate that if they really like someone, to wash it and wear it and let them love the clothes that keep them comfortable, keep them warm, and keep them happy. Adaptive clothing is something that you can do yourself, or you could go to a company and in long-term care, we have great companies that provide amazing clothes. I'd love you to watch this video. A gentleman is wearing a golf shirt that once you put that on, you would never know that he was in adaptive clothing. They have come so far in making sure that the video shows where a pair of pants are literally slid up the two legs around the back, and that person never had to lift their butt cheeks. So there's amazing adaptive clothing out there to really help your loved one get in and out of clothing, but still look like they're in clothing when they have visitors around. So there's some great options out there. And I am an avid sewer, and trust me, I have my mother-in-law needed adaptive clothing, and I could have went to the companies and spent a lot of money, and I'm like, you know what, I can adapt it, make them look amazing, and use her own clothing that I knew she loved to wear. So you can do a lot with adaptive clothing and make it easier for your loved one. So let's talk on a mobility and some aids that we can use around there. So most important, shoes. Shoes are the most important for standing and transferring and walking. You don't have to leave them on. I met a lovely gentleman this week that goes, I will put my shoes on to transfer, but once I'm in my wheelchair, I want my wool winter socks that I used to wear when I worked. I want them on my feet. They slide on the floor like a charm. I said, great. But when you have to transfer again, the shoes have to come back on. And he goes, absolutely. So it's always negotiating. You will see on this video about the walker, but one of the things about the adaptive clothing, they also have adaptive shoes that I bought my mom, who is a diabetic now and is 85 years old. She has these great slippers now that she goes, oh, Tara, if I've got swelling, I can make them bigger, I can make them smaller. They're all Velcro. I can use them with her arthritic hands. So lots of adaptive things that will help. The one thing that if you ever get near the hospital or if you go to Lovely Value Village, you can find grip socks. Grip socks are amazing. You can still even buy them at stores that have the little rubber bumpies on the bottom. That works just like shoes and prevents that slipping. And so someone does have to take steps with them because you will stick to the bottom of the floor. So lots of things that you can use to prevent falls from happening. So when we're talking about new equipment, you'll have your loved one that goes, I've never used a walker, I've never used a cane, I've always been independent, but now they're getting weaker and they need it. The most important message you can provide them is that you want them to be independent. You want them to be able to get up and go where they want to go and not me have to jump up and help them every time. But if they use their equipment, they'd actually have more independence and makes them feel that they have control. So that's the key to trying out new equipment and going, maybe this will work, maybe it won't, but always trying it and going, I want you to be able to go where you want, when you want, and not have to, call me every time you need to move. So one of the misconceptions a lot of people have is that once I sit in that wheelchair, that's it. I no longer can walk anymore. And it really is a very good misnomer out there because many people can get in the wheelchair and the companies can lower them down so you can have your feet completely on the floor and you can foot propel. And I have many seniors, they can boot, and boy, can they boot fast by using their feet. They don't have to use their arms. They could if they want to, but typically they just use their feet to walk along. That creates lots of energy, lots of good walking, and it really keeps their mobility up. I have people that will use their walker for short distance and their wheelchairs for longer distances. My mom is like that. In the house, she uses a walker. The moment she goes out to the car, she leaves a walker in the garage and she flips into the wheelchair for longer distances because she can't walk that far for like in a grocery store when you could go shopping. So that kind of thing. So do watch this video. It's a great one to how to safely use a walker and support someone that's learning how to use a walker. So let's talk about good old transfer skills. So it's really about being comfortable both in your mind and in your body in order to do a transfer. And remember, one thing I learned from a physiotherapist many years ago is that for every 10 pounds that I carry in my hand, you need to times that by 10 to the amount of workload and pressure that you're putting onto your back. So if I'm lifting 50 pounds, I've now put on 500 pounds onto my back. So really watch what you're carrying, make more trips and drop that weight down.
we're notorious for bringing our groceries in. And what do? We grab 5 bags on one side and 4 bags on the other. Well, you're now lifting 50 pounds, people. So think about it and do more trips. So that's one thing about when you're doing transferring, it's a going, am I using everything I can to keep them safe? But more importantly, I have to keep doing this over and over again to make sure that I'm safe. So the old adage of using your legs and not your back is so important. And it means about keeping your back straight, keeping your knees bent. It's pulling in that core muscles. Transfer belts is the most important thing that you can ever purchase. They're typically less than 20 bucks. And there's many different types out there. They all work. They're all adjustable. Instead of grabbing onto your loved one's arm and causing shoulder injuries, or they fall, you fall, is using a transfer belt. It's around, just around that hips, right onto your hip bones. It is that center of gravity. It helps that I don't have to be grabbing. They can use their arms to move because I'm holding them by their center core of their body with the transfer belt. So it's a great tool. I really encourage you to look at the video. It is the #1 thing that we use in long-term care over and over and over again. We have prevent falls. When people start to stumble, I've got them and I can lean them down slowly and have them slide down my legs onto the floor. If they're going to have a fall, rather than falling forward, they'll slide backwards with that transfer belt. So it's a great tool. One of the easy things to do when you're ready to transfer someone is doing the 1, 2, 3 and letting them know on the count of 3, we're going to stand up. You lean that person the momentum forward. So it's 1, and then it's 2 and 3. Here we go. And it's that momentum. It gets the mind going. What are we doing? It gets the body going. Okay, we're getting ready. We're getting ready. 3. Okay, we all do that. And that's where you're hanging on to the transfer belt is great. The one thing I can always encourage you to use is use the one-handed bum lift. You've got one hand on the transfer belt. You have the other one on the cheek that's closest to you. They're rocking forward. As they rock forward, you get that hand underneath there better. That one-handed bum lift can take someone that is almost there to being able to completely stand up. It also helps you that if your loved one is not having a great day, and you've done the rocking, you've done the counting, you've done the butt cheek, and they're starting, and they can only go a few feet, a few inches up, that's when you need to stop. Because the risk factor is now who's doing all the lifting? You're doing all the lifting, and you will injure yourself, even with a transfer belt. So that's when you're like, you know what, Mom, not right now. Why don't we wait a little bit? Why don't you rest a little bit? Let's get your feet up. And, oh, I really have to go to the bathroom. Okay, Mom, I know, but remember, we bought these really good pads and I promise we're going to go, but you just can't go right this moment. Give them time to get motivated. And when someone isn't able to transfer, it's not trying 5 minutes. It's trying in maybe 15 minutes. Give the body a chance to recoup, regenerate, give them a drink, get them comfortable, maybe doing a few steps on the floor to get their legs going and call your body. Remember, we're going to get up, we're going to get moving. Those kind of things could be done in the 15 minutes so they feel like they're doing something while they're getting ready to try the lift again. If you have the luxury of having a second person, don't hesitate to have the second person on the other side, always one hand on the transfer belt. And now you each have a hand on that bum cheek to give that lift. And then you're dividing that workload up in the lifting of it. So it's a great way to support transfer. So I want to talk about falls. They happen. 1 out of every 3 seniors fall every day. I'm sorry, it's high. Best story is that I talked to my mother this week and she goes, "You're not going to be happy with me." I said, "Oh, what happened?" Because I am the nurse in the family. She goes, "I had a fall." I went, "Oh, what happened?" I was sitting on the side of the bed and I was leaning forward because the light wasn't working on the lamp, and I leaned forward, but I didn't realize I was so close to the edge of the bed, and poof, I fell onto my knees. Well, she's had both knee replacements. She has rheumatoid arthritis, 85. And no, I said, "So what did you do?" Because this was the middle of the night. Nobody was around. Everyone that's in the house is downstairs and sleeping. So she said, well, I learned something from your father. He had a fall and he said that he scooted to the stairs, which is out of the bedroom, down the little hall to the stairs. And I scooted my bum, took me a while, but I scooted there. And then I was able to get my legs down on the stairs, hang on to the railing and get up that way. I'm like, oh, that's ingenious. So I said, that's a great way. So falls happen. And because she always has someone in the house, she doesn't have an alarm system. So my hand went up and went, you know what, Mom, I think it's time that we get the alarm system, because just because my sister and her husband live downstairs doesn't mean that they could be outside and that. So we have set her up with the alarm system, which are, again, are uber cheap to use. Whereas just like a watch on the arm. So lots of things you can do around falls to give you security. Again, that baby monitor is an amazing product that if something's happening during the middle of the night, you can hear them calling out for help. So the monitors are amazing. So when you're helping someone from a fall, it's best to check first that there is no injuries. You want to make sure that the left arm works and the right arm works and the left hip works. And are they having any pain? If they're really having a lot of pain, stop, leave them where they are. Give them a pillow, give them blankets, call 911, get help, okay? And the video is really teaching you how to get someone off the floor. It really walks you through straightforward. I do it routinely all the time. We have the luxury of ceiling lifts, so we don't have to lift people off the floor. But in the beginning of my career, we were taught how to get everybody off the floor because we didn't have machines back then. So it is possible to do it. And they need a chair, they need a bed, a couch, something. So as they're getting back onto their knees, they have something to get to. Use the stairwells. That was an amazing idea from my mom, and it helped her when she was by herself. She could get up. So let's talk about transfers in and out of vehicles. It is something that as your loved one is declining, you really need to give them support, protect their head, but also give them that ability to get in and out. And the best practice is with another person. So don't do it with your loved one, grab a neighbor, grab a friend and go, hey, can I help you get in and out of the car and make me follow the instructions of what to do? So you're really comfortable. As I said, same thing about bathing. If you feel confident about it and you exude that you know what you're doing, your loved one's going to trust you and be more willing to participate. Some of the videos are great. They show that a simple garbage bag, putting that on the seat first, really helps them swing. Because once you sit on your seat when getting in your vehicle, you have to swing around. But the garbage bag is a great way. By the way, if someone has any incontinence, it's another great way to protect your seat. So it works like a charm, and you can put the garbage bag on the seat, then a really sturdy towel, something like that. It helps you swing the person around. So really great. The video also reminds you about how important, no matter how ill someone is, the seatbelt is critical for safety. Really watching that head when they're coming in. The video also shows that there is a little grab bar that you can put on the knob that's on your door frame that we all have. They're $5, but they work like a charm, and it's an extra handle because when you do the transfer, you only have the door handle and that's it. And sometimes that's too far away. But the handle that goes on the door frame is another easy tool to use to help your loved one get in and out of the car. And when you're outings, I thought so. So one thing is about getting in and out. So when you can no longer get in and out of your car safely, wheelchair taxis are a great way, a little expensive, but the Handy Dart is an amazing program, and your physician has to sign a form. It's so easy to submit that. And staying in one zone is $1.50. It's so cheap. Going a little bit further, you might go through several zones, but really so much cheaper than a taxi ever is. So the Handy Dart is a great program. Remember that when you're using the Handy Dart, you can't get in there without footrest, and your wheelchair needs to have a seatbelt. It is mandatory for safety. If your vehicle is like my husband's, and I now need to hang on to the handrail to get into his vehicle because it's way too high for me now, let alone someone that would be my mother, we'd have to switch over to another vehicle that would work with them. So don't hesitate to go, hey, I'm taking mom to the doctors today. Can I use your vehicle? So swap it around so it's convenient to get in and out. I'm always surprised when loved ones come to pick their families up before COVID, and they would have a pickup truck, and I'm like, that isn't going to work. I'm sorry, but the average senior cannot get in and out of a pickup truck anymore. The Red Cross equipment, I've actually used that because my husband had to have knee surgery, and then my brother-in-law did. Amazing program. You go in and you can see a physiotherapist and have it ticked off. You can see your doctor and have it ticked off. You can go to any of the medical stores and they'll recommend what you need. So lots of different support system with the Red Cross. And it's by donation, so you can't go wrong. And the equipment is amazing. You can get everything from walkers to wheelchairs. You can get a shower chair commode. You can get canes or crutches. You can get the good old bed assist. Someone that is really feeling uncomfortable and they're really not able to sit up by themselves. A bed assist that's under your mattress, between your two mattresses. It's another great thing. Raised toilet seats are perfect for people that can't get down to that lower toilet anymore. The good old bath grab bars. So when people can still keep showering, it's great for all these great bars. You can put it on the side of the tub. You can put it on the wall. All these things are perfect to make them safe and still be able to continue to shower. The bed cradle goes over your feet, can be over your knees too, whatever area is very sensitive and you can't handle the pressure of the blankets. But they have them and they're perfect to be able to keep your loved one in bed, but not have the added pressure of the blankets. So there is a loan program that you can have, and it also works with the short loan program can actually get to the level that if you need a hospital bed, if you need a patient lift program. So you do need to organize that a little bit further out. It isn't something that you can just call today because there's limited supply of them. But if you're wanting to do that kind of program in your own home, there is great programs that are available, and that's the advanced Red Cross program that they have. On the screen is the numbers both for the Kelowna, West Kelowna, and Lake Country, but anyone, no matter where you're living, you can just look up the Red Cross loan program and you can find the number easily to be able to reach out to them. So let's talk about personal care at home summary. So some of the key things I want you to take away, number one is humor. So I had to help my mother when she had her first knee surgery done. I went home to Ontario and I had took care of her in the hospital, and then I got her home and took care of her. And she was starting to have some stress incontinence then, but had a lot of control. And she was having some incontinent problems with post-anesthetic and that. And she was like, oh, this is so embarrassing. And I'm like, Mommy, how many diapers did you change for me? Oh, a lot. I said, well, you had 5 kids, so how many diapers did you change? Oh, a lot. I said, well, we're helping you now. And with it, if I needed it right now, would you not help me right now? Oh, of course I would. I said, well, I get to help you and I love you. It's all about love. Reminding them that I'm here, and you find humor in it. And I go, you know what, Mom? I do it now. I laugh and I sneeze and go, oh, and I'm like, we all have it. And right now you need the help. So humor is the best way. One of the arsenals that we use, and I'm sure as volunteers you can use it too, is have a joke. And if you're not good for remembering them, carry your book and go and find something humor in it. And while you're sitting there and they're trying to have a poop, but you can't leave them alone, but you need to have a poop. It's like, oh, well, I read this in the paper today, or I saw this today. And I'm telling stories. Telling stories gives them thinking something else besides what is going on and what we have to take care of. So use humor as a great way. Reminding your loved ones that this is all about love, and that if the shoe was on the other foot, they would absolutely want to be there to love you and support you. And that this is one way that you get to feel useful. You get to feel that you are helping them, because we feel so often that there's not enough that we could do for them. Please don't hesitate to reach out though. Your physician is a great resource. The COHA team and the volunteers is a great program. Your palliative care team has a great 1-800 number that you can call anytime. They're available 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. I'm so excited they have now opened up the palliative care program into the long-term care during the COVID. So we're able to reach out if we need support. So I love that. Don't hesitate to reach out to your family, your friends, and your neighbors. Often we want to help you. We know that you're working hard. We know that you're struggling as a caregiver, but we don't know how to help, or we don't know if we might be, bothering you. I get that a lot. Oh, I don't know if I'm bothering you right now. You might be busy. I thought you were busy. So don't hesitate to reach out and put that hand out and go, I could use a hand. Could you come over and help me for a minute? Your neighbors would absolutely go, absolutely, I will be here for you. Because no one vice versa, you would be there for them. So remember about providing personal care. It's both physically, but both emotionally draining. It takes a lot. Do everything in small steps. Don't go, okay, we're going to get up, we're going to get washed, we're going to have a shower, then we're going to go to the doctors, and then we're going to go pick up their medications. Oh, that's too much. One thing, break it down. One of my final key takeaways is music. I have no tone to sing at all. That does not mean I do not sing. But music is the best way. So even with my granddaughter now, I sing songs that are lovely nursery rhymes now, but I sing songs and it's entertaining her. Takes her out of that fussy, grumpy, I want to cry moment into the happy moment. It takes your mind out of what you're doing right now, which could be, let's get personal care done. And it could be a song, it could be a hymn. I have a lot of seniors that love singing songs that they knew as a child and singing them over and over again. And it's something that you both can engage in and really help that thought process while you're doing the more difficult jobs. I love this little, I'm always going off of Charlie Brown and Snoopy, and I love this one. So every time you find some humor in a difficult situation, you have won that situation. And I keep that in my arsenal. So I am going to ask if there's any questions that I might be able to answer.
There hasn't been any questions in the chat.
Perfect. That makes it even easier. So don't hesitate to watch the videos. If you ever have any questions from that, don't hesitate to get a hold of Bonnie. Bonnie will get a hold of me. I was able to meet a caregiver back in the fall and be able to help that person navigate the good old system of going from home into, do I go to assisted living, independent living, long-term care? How do I work that? How do I get support? How do I contact the health authority? So don't hesitate if you need any support like that. You've got great resources out here. In Kelowna alone, we have 16 long-term care homes, and they're full. So we just got beds that are opening up in 2022 for 150 beds. So there's always room to support your loved ones and really look at the humor of it and the love in it and taking care of yourself. So if there's no other questions, I'll say thank you.
Our inspiration segment is to be inspiring, thought-provoking, empowering, and allow us to be curious with ourselves. Today's inspiration speaker is Sharon Hughes-Geekie. Sharon has spent 12 years as Area Director, BC Interior, with a national home healthcare company. Today, she is the owner of Jumpstart Communications and Business Development and co-author of Mama's Gotta Work. She serves as healthcare representative on the Central Okanagan Economic Development Commission's Advisory Council, is vice chair of the Okanagan branch of Women in Leadership, and her latest co-author project, Fearless, arrives in bookstores in March.
The topic today is enabling wellness, and that is the goal of family caregivers. So when we talk about wellness, we're talking about an active process which people become aware of and make choices toward a successful existence. Now, that changes over time. What is a successful existence at the beginning of a diagnosis or the beginning of aging changes. And so it's constant new information that you're navigating. And that's the challenge for family members, is that things are a constant moving target. Next slide. So my parents passed away in the last 2 years. My dad passed away 2 years ago and my mom passed away a year ago. And my dad had, prior to his passing, my dad had a form of blood cancer, and my mom broke her hip the day before their 60th wedding anniversary and ended up in facility care. So as a family, my siblings, my brother is younger than me and my sister is older than me, had to navigate the care process. Now, as Natasha alluded to, I have spent a lot of time in healthcare, and I've worked with hundreds of families, helping them navigate care decisions and all the things that families need to think about. And I have to tell you, it is totally different when you are doing it with your own family, because with family dynamics is decades of baggage and differing personalities and differing relationships with my parents. And so what I might have thought was a good idea, my sister didn't feel was a good idea. And so it was a constant give and take, trying to navigate what was best for my family. So when my parents were diagnosed, my dad was initially asymptomatic, and so he was able to go visit mom in the nursing home every single day. But as his condition deteriorated, my sister took over that responsibility, because my sister and brother live in Calgary and I'm one of the faraway caregivers. So we did a lot of navigating, and some things we did very, very well, and some things I really view as missed opportunities. And so this is our journey, and everybody's journey is different. But these are some of the things that we think that we did really well, and you might want to consider in the future, and other things I'm hoping you will learn from. Next slide. Validate a life well lived. Reminiscing is a wonderful opportunity to connect with your family member when it's really hard to talk about things. And it allows them to talk and think about the good things that happened in their lives and move forward, feeling good about what they've accomplished in their life. One of the things that I tried to do whenever I was reminiscing with my mom or my dad was to ask questions. What was their greatest accomplishment? What were they most proud of? What were the moments in their life that really stood out? With my dad, it was really interesting because he grew up on a farm. He was very, very poor, and he ended up with a master's degree, which he was incredibly proud of because it was such a difficult journey to get there. My mom, a very different person, was a stay-at-home mom and happy with her life, not a doer or highly motivated. She was happy to be at home raising her children. And when asked what her proudest moment was, she was in a piano contest as a young girl and considered to be the loser in the contest. And she came out on top, which she was incredibly proud of. So it's those moments that they remember, and it makes their lives, it puts it in perspective that even though they're going through tough times, they had a good life, and they're able to think back on that and feel good about their accomplishments. Next slide. So we do a lot of celebrating. I have to tell you that my family is a family of sugar addicts. We celebrate with cake constantly. My dad turned 90 8 months before he passed away, and we wanted to give him a celebration. He was still feeling pretty good, and we wanted to have a party for him, invite all the relatives, and give people a chance to actually spend time with him. My dad is not a person that likes attention, and he was adamant that he didn't want a party. So my uncle, who was 96 at the time, that's the gentleman sitting on your right, he phoned up my dad, who at that point, my uncle was also aware that my dad had a terminal disease. So he phoned up my dad and he said, look it, I want a party. We go to funerals all the time at our age. I want to be able to celebrate this special moment with you. I want you to have a party. So my dad decided that it would be a good thing to have a party for my uncle's sake. So we moved the party to Wetaskiwin, 2 hours from Calgary, where my uncle lived. And we planned the party in Wetaskiwin so that my uncle could be there and it was closer to all the relatives. It was an amazing day. And what made the celebration so special is that it enabled us to tell my dad the good things that he had done, the difference he had made in our lives, and the things that we were proud of him for, and not wait for a eulogy at a funeral. So it was a very, very important moment for us. And it was something that made Dad feel very special. And again, it put his life into perspective and he realized how much he was valued. Next slide. Support. So this is one of the things that we didn't do so well. My dad got his diagnosis and they told him as he started to deteriorate that he could go for chemo. Now we asked very clearly what the outcomes were, and they said it might prolong his life for 3 to 6 months. But there were side effects to the chemo. So again, it's different family dynamics and different perspectives. So my perspective, having been in healthcare, was that chemo can be very destructive. I have seen clients go through terrible times with chemo, and it was not a good way to spend their last days. My mom and my sister felt very strongly that my dad needed to do everything possible in order to survive. My dad was kind of the mind that he really wasn't keen on chemo, but he didn't want to disappoint my parents or my mom and my sister. So I said to him, you don't need to do this. You need to do what's right for you. And he said, well, you know what? I don't want your sister and your mom to be upset with me. So I will try chemo. And if it doesn't work, I can always stop. So that's what he did. It was terrible. He went from being active and mobile to being very weak. He would moan all the time. He was in terrible pain and he was exhausted. He stopped eating. He lost weight. He needed more blood transfusions. It wasn't a good course of action. But again, he did it because other people were counting on him to do it. And that happens so often that we are so convinced that survival and having a few more days with the ones we love is more important than quality of life, because in our heads, we know that a person is dying, but in our hearts, we are always holding out hope. And so my recommendation is that you get all of the information about what outcomes look like, and you ultimately let the person decide. If they're of sound mind, you let them decide what they want their life to look like at the end, and whether that's taking aggressive treatments and hoping for the best, or whether it's, having a less invasive care regimen and enjoying a few more moments with family. That's something that your loved one has to consider. And if they're mentally capable, they need to have support in their decision. The other thing that I will tell you is that planning physically and mentally for the worst case scenario is very, very depressing, and it's very, very hard, but it makes a huge difference, because if you wait until what you hope will never happen does, you're in a position where you're overwhelmed and you're not able to cope, because suddenly you're feeling terrible about the situation and it all seems so hopeless, and you're devastated and have a tougher time coping than if you'd planned in advance. The other thing is to be honest about your limitations as a caregiver. Now, when my mom broke her hip, my dad was still fairly asymptomatic, but he was weak, and he knew that there is no way that he could look after my mom when she couldn't toilet herself, she couldn't dress herself, she couldn't get in and out of a chair by herself. So he said, when the doctors told him that mom could go home, he was adamant that she couldn't go home, that he couldn't look after her, and that it wasn't something that he was willing to entertain. And so he made the very, very difficult decision, and something he felt guilty about forever, about having her go into a nursing home. And again, it was a difficult decision, but it was the right decision, because he clearly couldn't have looked after her on his own, and she wasn't about to take care from anybody outside of the family. So it would have put him in a position where she wasn't getting proper care and he wasn't taking proper care of himself. Next slide. So you're always looking for ways of making things better for your loved one, and nature and animals really are helpful. Getting out for a walk in nature is very therapeutic. You know, if they have pets, being around their pets. If they don't have pets, bring your own animals over for them to visit for short periods of time. The other thing too is not only being in nature, but looking after a living thing. In my mom's case, she had a roommate that loved plants. She was in a wheelchair. She couldn't possibly look after plants, but our family used to take her plants all the time and we'd water them for her. And she would tell us every day when it had a new leaf or whatever. And it's because as human beings, we want to be useful. We want to look after something. We want to make a difference. And by having a plant, you know, even just being able to water it or watch it grow makes you feel useful, and it can be very therapeutic. Next slide. So peace of mind. This was another thing that we didn't do so well. My dad was a planner. He knew exactly what he wanted in his life, and everything was set out. He had lists for when he died. He had lists of who to contact, where the funeral arrangements were to be made. He had lists of everything that you needed to do, government contacts you needed to make. He had a step-by-step guide as to what to do when he was ready to pass. Now, it was probably 2 months before my dad passed away that we were sitting in a restaurant, my brother and my sister and I, with my dad. And my dad, out of the blue, said, you know, I think it's time that you all start looking for a casket. Make that arrangement because I think it's time to get that done. Well, my sister, who was very, very close to my dad, burst into tears and said, no, we are not going to talk about this. You've got lots of time left. It's too soon. We don't want to even discuss this. Now, her reaction was authentic and it was very real, and it came from a place of love and perhaps denial. But what it eventually did was, again, my dad wanted to please. And so he didn't want to talk about anything that was going to cause his family pain and suffering. And so he didn't talk about that again. Now, the problem with that is that it would have given him peace of mind to know that that arrangement was done. It also would have given him control over the final stages of his life. And it also would have been an opportunity for us to bond as a family and do something together and make decisions together and bring us a little bit closer together and open those lines of communication so that my dad felt comfortable talking to us about anything during the final days of his life. So I feel badly that we didn't do that. And in retrospect, again, family dynamics got in the way. You know, if it had been an objective person from the outside of the family who had helped us to navigate that, I think the conversation would have gone a little bit differently, and my sister could have left feeling a little bit better about things, and my dad could have gotten the closure that he needed. Next slide. So the other thing that my dad did when he made his plans, and he sat down and had a meeting with us probably 2 years before he passed, was that he decided what he wanted for his funeral, and as did my mom. And my mom wanted a full funeral, and my dad wanted a graveside service with only immediate family. So my mom is a person that likes to be in control, and control is very, very important to her and has been her entire life. So when we went to talk to mom about the service, once my dad passed away, my mom said, you know, you've got to talk to the minister about a funeral. And we told my mom that dad didn't want a funeral. He only wanted a graveside service. My mom was outraged. And she said, he did this behind my back. He lied to me. He didn't discuss this with me. And we said, remember, mom, the meeting that he had? He was very clear. He wrote it down. That is not what he wanted. So we were caught in a place where we wanted to honor my dad's wishes, but we also didn't want my mom to have this ongoing anger and grudge against my dad, who she had passionately loved for over 60 years. So we had to come up with a way of fixing things. So what we ultimately did was we had a celebration of life in the church, but not in the sanctuary. We had a sunroom, beautiful April day, brimming with sunshine. We sent notices around to the neighbors. We put it in their mailbox, and we invited friends and relatives. And we said, we're just going to have a celebration of life. There was no minister there. My brother and my sister and I all talked about the good things my dad had done and told stories. And, you know, there were no hymns. My dad loved poetry, and he was a gold panner. And we played the cremation of Sam McGee with Johnny Cash, because at 88, he'd gone to the Yukon to pan for gold. And it was his lifelong dream to stand on the marge of Lake LaBarge, where they created Sam McGee. And that's exactly what he did. And so that was one of the songs we played. It was an absolutely beautiful afternoon. People left and said what a good time they'd had, which is not something that you ever hear at a funeral. So we felt that we had done a good thing. It was absolutely packed. We were thinking 30 or 40 people, and there were over 100. We violated fire regulations, but it was an absolutely wonderful tribute to my dad, and it made my mom happy. And it still respected my dad's wishes that he didn't want a church funeral. And again, control is so important. And as people age and illness sets in, there's a loss of control. And rejecting care is a way of exhibiting control. And that is certainly what my mom did. In order to be able to go home, she needed to do exercises, and she refused medication. She refused to go down to dinner. She refused to do all of those things because it gave her control. And we felt that if we had not done something to help her through Dad's death, that would have escalated. In actual fact, what happened was that after my dad passed away, she wanted to go home. And we said to her, nothing has changed. There are 13 steps to get into your kitchen, and you're not able to do that. And in order to do that, you need to exercise. So my mom finally, stubbornness kicked in, and she said, okay, I am going to exercise and I am going home. And we said, well, we could get you into a condo, or we could put a lift into the house. She goes, you're not damaging my house, and I'm not living in a condo. I'm going home as is. And that's my plan. So all of a sudden she started exercising, and she started doing regular efforts with the therapist, which you see in that picture, who was a wonderful human being. And my sister made a little box, and she would do steps at her chair so that she would lift her feet on and off the box. And one day we were working my mom at the bars, and my mom said, I'm going up the flight of stairs in the nursing home. And we're like, well, Mom, that probably isn't a good idea. And she goes, no, that's what I'm doing. And so the physiotherapist, bless her soul, said, okay, let's try it. So they took Mom into the stairwell, they parked her wheelchair, and she made it up the flight of stairs. We got her a chair and a glass of water at the top, and she was as proud as can be. And for her, it was a huge accomplishment. And she wasn't a person that had huge accomplishments throughout her life. And she was suddenly the talk of the nursing home, and she inspired others. Others saw what she was capable of, and they wanted to have that same opportunity. So it was a huge problem for the physiotherapist, because suddenly she was inundated with requests for help. But though my mom never made it up the stairs again, and she declined after that, and she never did make it home, it was one of the proudest moments in her life. And for that, I am incredibly grateful, because the more independence people have, it increases wellness, and it gives them the confidence to do more. And that was certainly the case with my mom. Once she made it up the stairs, she thought that there was no stopping her, and she truly believed that she would eventually go home. Next slide. Your role as a family caregiver is not to enable your loved one to survive. It is to help them to live their best possible life in the time that they have left. Being a caregiver is very, very difficult. And you know, we had it relatively easy. We had a very closely knit family. My sister and brother and I agreed on most things. We were able to compromise on most things. And my parents had done careful planning for their golden years. So it wasn't as much of a struggle as some people have. Everybody has a different journey. And, you know, I'm grateful for the journey that we had, and I'm grateful for my siblings and the role that they played. I'm particularly grateful for my sister, because like most eldest daughters, she took the lion's share of the work.
And it was a struggle for her. And for that, both my brother and I and my parents are extremely grateful. Next slide. But looking after yourself needs to be a priority. And that is something that you constantly need to look at, ways of taking that time for yourself, ways of connecting with your friends, connecting with the people that you like, doing things, learning things. Don't put your own life on hold to care for somebody else, because those experiences, as I talked about in my first presentation when we started this education series, is that those experiences are what move your life forward. They are what living is all about. And if you give up those experiences, your life is on hold and you're marking time. And those experiences that you have, those new experiences that you gain and the things that you do, it gives you something exciting and new to share with your loved one who may not be able to enjoy those things. Thank you very much.